Really quickly before we get started, I just wanted to say if you like my videos, please consider subscribing. I'm working hard to try and become a YouTube partner, and I need a lot of watch hours to do that. Subscribing definitely helps, and every minute counts. Thanks, guys. Love you so much. Anyways, so how this is going to work, I'm going to give my controversial take, even though I don't think it's that controversial. And then I asked on Twitter and Instagram what your guys' is, and I'm going to read some of those and give my thoughts on those. So mine, like I said, I really don't think it's that controversial, but whenever I seem to post about it, I get flack. It's Sony Michel. I think he's very average. I don't know if some of you guys don't like the word average and you take that as me calling him bad. I don't think Sony Michel is bad. He does frustrate me though. I definitely think the offensive line his rookie year helped a lot. Again, I'm not calling him bad, but he doesn't really make a lot of plays on his own. I just think when you go, you look at each ability of his, I don't really think there's a lot that's above average. Speed. I think he's average speed. Elusiveness, pretty average. Vision, inconsistent, but he does hit the holes, that are given. I would say average. I don't know. He doesn't scream first round talent to me at all. And it's frustrating, especially when, guys like Nick Chubb are still available. I think his first year, set a really high standard for him. And then people were surprised when he wasn't as good last year. And I don't really think that's fair because I think a lot of his success the first year was because he was running behind arguably one of the best offensive lines in football. And, last year that took a hit. And as a result, his production did. But at the end of the day, he doesn't make a lot of plays on his own, and that's why I just think he's average. It's just funny that, I say anything that's like mildly critical of him, and I have like hordes of people. You guys like release the hounds on me, like I just like committed a cardinal sin. Anyways, on to your guys' opinions. This guy said, should have never gotten rid of Hollister. He's a good tight end, and he would have shined if he wasn't behind Gronk. Yeah, man, I totally agree. I don't even really think that's controversial, to be honest. But I definitely agree. This past season, he was great with Seattle. He produced really well there, and given the dead last ranked production that the Patriots had out of the tight end position, I think that was a huge mistake to let him go. This guy says, I think the Pats will be good next year, 10 plus wins. Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, that's controversial. I feel like the consensus or the majority of people feel that they're somewhere within the 7 to 9 range, myself included. There was a lot of moving pieces. Stidham, I think he's going to be pretty good, but he's a big question mark. They have a really tough schedule this year. 10 plus wins is a lot, and it's not going to be easy. This guy says we should trade Jules and Hightower while there's still a market for them. That's controversial. That's a pretty good one, and I can understand where you're coming from with that. They're in a period of transition and you feel as though they should cash in on them while they still have value to help to help better the future. That's an idea I can get behind, but I don't want to. I don't want to, and I also think that we should keep them because we have all this incoming cap space come next off season. And those are players that you're going to want to have on your roster as you're adding all these other pieces. This guy said James White should get more reps than Michel. Completely agree, 100%. And I'm biased because of my controversial opinion of him being average, but I think James White always seems to produce when he's out there, and I prefer him over Michel. This guy says I miss this guy, and it's a gif of Aaron Hernandez.
And
I mean, I know what you mean. He was a great tight end, and he was projecting to have a great career, and then it came out that he was doing all this murdering behind the scenes. But I know, you probably should have phrased it a different way, saying that I miss a murderer, but I do understand what you were trying to say. This guy says N'Keal Harry will be a bust and never rise to better than an average fourth receiver. That's very, very controversial because I think he's already better than an average fourth wide receiver. I think he's definitely on the, number 3 category. 1 or 2 is definitely pushing it right now, but given his ability and what he's shown to be able to do in the open field, I think he's definitely, if you want to say he's average fourth, he's definitely better than an average fourth. I'd say he's somewhere in the 3 range right now. I think N'Keal Harry's going to be a breakout star. Yeah, I have a different video on that if you want to go check that out. But yeah, this guy says number 1 overall pick this year, baby. I don't know whether or not to take this one seriously, but I hate to break it to you guys. They are not tanking. They are not going to get the number 1 pick. This guy said, I think Kraft let the wrong guy go. Yeah, pretty controversial. I don't agree, but I do understand why you could feel that way. If Kraft picks Brady, he plays 2 or 3 years, he retires, rides off into the sunset, whatever. Then what? If there's no Bill to kind of bridge the gap between the 2 eras, I think that as a franchise, you're kind of left with your dick in your hand. But by keeping Bill, I think that the Patriots are in a position to be able to bridge that gap. While it might not be seamless, I would rather have that mind, and that coaching ability leading us from the greatest dynasty ever into whatever's next. You know what I mean? I just think that leaves the team in a much better position. And I don't know how much longer Bill's going to be coaching, but I think it's definitely longer than Brady's going to be playing. So you're getting more out of the player or / coach. And you're also, it's better to set up the future, because if Bill can set up something good after Brady, then he's leaving the franchise in good hands. He's setting a foundation for this new era, and I would much prefer that. This guy said James White should have won MVP in Super Bowl 51. That is the 28-3 game. White was a huge part of that. That's controversial because Brady won. And I would have been fine if James White had won it because he was amazing. I mean, his stats were just ridiculous. And he definitely gets overlooked, when talking about it. But, in my opinion, you're down 25 with, like 18 minutes left or whatever. It's got to go to the quarterback. It was they had completely abandoned the running game at that point. And it was Brady, and guys were helping him along the way, but it was Brady that led that comeback. So I'm okay with him winning MVP. I wasn't sad the day Brady announced he wasn't coming back. I had already processed that emotion months before. That's I wish I could say the same, but I was still holding out hope that he would resign here. That's not a controversial opinion. That's more of a this is what happened and this is how I felt, but. Yeah, I'm still kind of bummed, but it is what it is. We got to move on. This guy said Kembrell Tompkins was a better receiver in the Patriots than the Fel. That's controversial. That is what I was asking for. I don't agree. He had big playoff performances like 2014. He caught that really important touchdown against the Ravens to kind of seal it. And also in the Super Bowl against Seattle, he also had another one. Tompkins, I had high hopes for. I was fooled by his gaudy preseason numbers. I really thought they had something there. And he wasn't terrible, but and he did have that awesome play against the Saints, but he didn't nearly come close to, I think, what expectations might have been. I found him to be very disappointing. This guy said Nike should be added to the Pats coaching staff. That's not an opinion, to be quite frank. It's just a fact. This guy said the offense will be better with Stidham because he will pass to whoever. Unlike Brady, he won't ignore the rookies because they can't run the route correctly. So I agree with parts of this. So I don't know if they'll be better with Stidham overall because, they didn't really add any weapons. And I think it's safe to say that Brady is the better quarterback right now. And to be fair, we haven't seen Stidham, but it's definitely Brady Stidham right now. Like that, I mean, come on. But I do think there are elements here, like you said, he's just going to throw it to whoever. I think his looser style of play and just the team's looser approach to the offense, since he is new, I think that will definitely benefit the team. So I do think that, being willing to just throw to whoever and not holding grudges is a benefit. This guy said our defense was overrated all year and Gilmore is not a top 2 cornerback in the league. I agree with parts of this. I do think Gilmore is a top corner. That guy's just unreal. However, I do think that the defense in general was a little bit overrated. And overrated does not mean bad. They were a great defense and probably the best in the league. But I do think that they were a little overhyped during the first half of the season because they were playing hot garbage. I think there were certain games where they did get exposed. I don't really want to say the Ravens because they exposed everybody. But usually, if you're an all-time defense, you should be able to contain something like that. Definitely the game against Miami. That's the one that sticks out. The one in Houston was really bad. But like I said, they were definitely a top-tier defense, and they were great. But I don't, there were people that put them in the same category as like all-time defenses, and I think that's a little strong. This guy said there will be one hell of a QB battle between Jarrett Stidham and Trevor Lawrence next year. This guy is implying that, we're going to draft Lawrence, and that's not going to happen because they're not tanking, and they're not going to have a high enough pick. It's just not going to happen. So I would appreciate it if people put this to rest. But I understand wanting him because, talent potential is up through the roof. My dear friend Kelly says, Malcolm Butler being benched didn't lose us the Super Bowl. I said what I said. Kelly's a good friend of mine. Love you, Kelly. I feel like if Butler was on the field for the whole game, that a couple of those third downs go differently and the outcome as a result goes differently. But you can't really blame that, specifically because, he didn't play. He wasn't in the game. Him not being there was definitely a factor. But at the end of the day, like just the defensive game plan as a whole is the reason why they lost. So I agree with that part of it. But I do wonder, I was just thinking about it, like at what point did the rest of the defense know that Malcolm wasn't playing? Like, were they told days in advance, a week in advance, or were they told like 30 minutes before they were playing? Because that's huge. You have a game plan and, you're in the Super Bowl. It's the biggest game ever. That is a huge wrench thrown into the mix to show up and be told right before you're going out there, hey guys, by the way, top corner, nah, he's not playing. He's done. He's benched. And they're like what? Like that kind of fucks everything up, man. Like what are we supposed to do now? So I don't know if that information is available anywhere. I don't think so because that whole, situation's pretty murky and has been since it happened. But I do wonder at what point they were told because that's, him not playing is one thing, but the effect it has on everybody else and their awareness of it all, that's another thing. All right, this guy says Stidham will be a top 5 QB in 3 years. I got 54 likes on Insta. I think that's a little bit of wishful thinking, and I'm not saying you don't actually believe that. And it's good to have confidence. I think top 5's a little bit of a, golden standard, and that's going to be tough to accomplish. I worry about putting the expectations too high because, that can make or break a player. Guys crumble under that pressure. So I'm not expecting that. This guy said in 5 years, the connection between Stidham and N'Keal Harry will be like the connection between Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. That is strong. Matt Ryan, Julio has been one of the best connections for years. It's always been consistent. Even when Julio's been banged up, they still put up, those two put up insane numbers. And I like Stidham and I like N'Keal, as I said. I hope you're right. I don't have that opinion, but I do hope that it becomes true. This guy said the defense really bailed Brady out against the Rams. I don't think that's controversial at all. I feel like you're like, that's stating, what happened. And Brady wasn't terrible in that game. He made plays when he needed to. But yeah, they held, the arguably, it was them and the Chiefs for the best offense in the league that year. And they held them to 3 points. So yeah, the defense did bail them out. I feel like that's more of a fact. This guy said Josh Gordon would be elite if he hadn't gotten in trouble and stayed with the Pats. I tend to agree here. I don't know, I guess it kind of depends on how you define elite. I think elite's a little bit strong. I think he would have been very good, but, I don't think he would have gotten the volume to be considered elite, if that makes sense. This dude, I'm going to ignore how he spelled Belichick, but he said Belichick will be good without Brady. I hope so, man. Because that's what we got. All right, that's going to do it for the Controversial Opinions Patriots edition. If you like this video, let me know. I was thinking about doing it for each of the sports. I think that's fun. I think it's interesting, and I like getting you guys involved in the conversation. But yeah, if you didn't get to share your controversial Patriots opinion, comment below. Let me know. As always, like and subscribe, and yeah,